Hi Noteboard Gamers and welcome back to Noteboard Gaming. I'm your host, I'm Mark. Now in today's video I'm going to be teaching you the basics of how to play Ironwood solo. That's right, it's Ironwood. It's the latest game from Mindclash Games. It comes to Game Found on a pre-order basis on the 21st of May. The link will be in the description below. Now, Ironwood is a 1 to 2 player kind of skirmish type game. You're going to play on a map, two warring factions fighting against each other and trying to win dominance of the area. There are two clans involved in Ironwood. You have the Ironclad, who are kind of the ones who have the drills and the power, and they control the mountains. And then you have the Woodwalkers, who are the ones in the forest, and the Ironclad are trying to build forges so they can improve their kind of dominance in the area, whilst the Woodwalkers are trying to collect totems. If the Ironclad build 3 forges, they win the game. If the Woodwalkers collect 3 totems, they win the game. So as I say, it's a game for 1 to 2 players. This is not to go deep into the rules. I'm going to teach you the basics on playing against both of the bots. That's right, you can play as either clan against the other clan as a bot. So if you're playing as the Woodwalkers, you play against the Ironbot, and if you're playing as the Ironclad, you play against the Woodenbot, and they are both asymmetrical. Both factions are asymmetrical, whether it's in the 1-player or 2-player game, and they play slightly differently, certainly from a bot perspective. So what I'm going to do, I say, it's not going to be an in-depth rules teach. I'm going to show you basics of how each bot works, and hopefully that'll give you a good idea on how the solo works for you. Let me tell you. So I've had this game for a few weeks now. Mindclash kindly sent it me so I could cover it for the campaign, and I must have played 25 games of this. A number of those 2-player games, but majoritively solo games, and I'm having an absolute blast each and every time. So without much further ado, I'll drop you down to the table. I've got it set up initially for playing as the Ironclad against the Woodenbot. So I'll show you how the Woodenbot works. Then what we'll do is we'll flip the sides over and I'll play as the Woodwalkers against the Ironbot. So let's go down to the table. I'll show you the setup and then we'll run through how it works playing against the Woodenbot. Okay, so here we have the game mainly set up for a solo experience. I'm going to be playing as the Ironclad against the Woodenbot. So the good thing about when you're playing against one of the bots is your turns are going to be exactly as they are in the 2-player game, so you don't have to relearn rules for yourself. So the standard setup is that you would put 2 Woodwalkers or Woodenbot troops in each of the outer forests there, and then for the Ironclad, which is me, you got the middle, which is Ferrum. You have 1 troop there, one of your guys there as a warband, and then the drill is also there. And then on the 4 inner mountains, you're also going to put 3 of your troops, and each one of those collectively is a warband. And that's how the game sets up in terms of the board space, and that's the same for 1 or 2 players. Here I have the Ironclad's tokens, and when you do place them on the board, they're going to start off on the foundry side, and then at some point you want to convert those to forges. Remember, when you build 3 forges, you win, the foundation side, and move those to forges. Then you've got your basic cards, and that's these cards here. Now you can tell these are kind of the basic cards. These cards come back into your hand each and every time, and because you can tell they are because they have this dark arrow here, the dark banner there. On the special cards that you use and then discard in each turn or for wagering in a fight, you can see it's a light band. So these will always come back into your hand. Now these are the kind of hologrammatic or holographic, or should I say foil type cards that are part of the promo for it. The only difference in your setup is on both the Ironclad and the Woodwalkers. If you're playing as either of those against the bot, is you're going to remove 4 cards from the deck, and each card is numbered down at the bottom here. So you're going to remove IC13, IC17, IC27, IC33, and IC36 from your Ironclad deck if you're the Ironclad playing against the Woodwalker. And that is it. That is your kind of setup more or less done there. You're ready to start there. Now, for the Woodenbot, it's a slightly different setup. Of course, they're going to get their kind of starting hand of their 3 basic cards again. They've got the dark arrow, the dark banner at the top, as you can see just there. but they also have a vision deck. Okay, now in the multiplayer game, if you're playing as Woodwalkers, the vision deck works slightly differently. There are two types of cards within the vision deck, and these are where the totems are potentially going to appear. You can see these here, and these all have this symbol, which means that they are, so you're going to get 3 crystals for getting those. And those are mountains that are on the inner range here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and there are 4 of those cards just there. And then you have the rest of the ranges. The Woodenbot is going to try and discover a totem at one of these ranges. But to start the game off, what you will do is you will take the first 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're going to put a marker on each of these mountains here. So down on the board, below each mountain, you have a marker space. So this means that this is a potential area where the Woodenbot can discover the first totem. Now you're going to shuffle these cards and put them onto the Woodenbot's player board, okay? So they're in any area. Now, when you uncover those and you discover those areas and there isn't a totem there, which will happen, and I'll explain how that happens, you're going to remove the marker so it knows where it's going to go on the board. Also helps you as the Ironclad because you know potentially where they're not going to go. So that's kind of the setup there. Now, it does have its own side of board as well. So I've got the Ironclad board here and the Woodenbot board here, and it will give you the flow of turns on the board itself. Of course, crystals, kind of the currency in the game. It helps the Woodenbot recruit, and it certainly helps me recruit, but it also helps me turn my foundations into forges as well. You have to pay 5 crystals for that. So we're going to go in the flow at the very first phase, and this is the preparation phase. One other thing to show you is the kind of turn order and the stance, if you like, for the Woodenbot. Now this sheet actually is double-sided for the Woodenbot, and it also has the Ironbot on one side as well, but we're just about the Woodenbot. You have a disruptive side here, and you also have an exalted side. So it stays in the disrupted side until it discovers a totem, and a totem is placed onto the board. As soon as that happens, you flip it over to the other side, and you're going to use this until there is no totem on the map, or you have 2 forges, 1 plus foundry, foundation, and 5 crystals. So that's the time you'd flip it back to there. Generally throughout the game, it's going to be when a totem has been taken off the board, then you would flip it back to the disrupted side. Another thing to note here is on both sides it has spirits of the forest. Now every time I build a foundation, a marker cube is placed on there, and when there are marker cubes on there in combat, the Woodenbot will get +1 attack and +1 dominance as well. So it's kind of quite important for it. Attack is kind of its strength when it attacks, and dominance kind of sorts out any ties at the end of the combat. Every time it has a combat, it would remove a marker cube from there. And if you have marker cubes on there and you flip it over to the other side, you just put those marker cubes on there. So Spirit of the Forest, it will build up throughout it. Now down here, you have the Woodenbot's actions as well. Now these icons are going to be on the cards, and I'll explain how that works slightly differently for the Woodenbot as it does for you. They're going to be on the cards, and that's going to dictate exactly what actions it's going to take. Okay, so we'll put those up there. All right, so that is kind of more or less everything set up right now. So we'll go through this here. Now, the first thing that happens on both of them is I gain 2 crystals, the Woodenbot gains 1 crystal, okay? Then it's to draw 2. I'm going to draw 2 cards from my deck and put them into my hand, okay? The Woodenbot is going to take 2 cards face down from its card pile, and then it's going to shuffle them, okay? So we know it's got its 3 basic cards in there, and it's also got 2 other cards in there as well. I'll turn those sideways, okay? So that's that. And then it says to remove markers. Now, some of these cards will allow you to put markers on them, and this is the point in the game where you would remove the markers. There's none here. Worth noting that if there are markers up on the Spirit of the Forest, then you do not remove those markers in this stage. Those markers are only removed if they have a combat against you. Okay, so that's it. That's the kind of preparation phase done. Now we go into the action phase. The Woodenbot always goes first. Every round, it always goes first. Okay. And the first thing it's going to do is it's going to see if it can locate where a totem may be. Bear in mind, it's the whole aim of it is to try and get a totem. So while it is in disruptive mode only, you flip over one of these cards. Now, if it's the last card, it's going to discover a totem, but this isn't. So we know that, first of all, Zinker, we know that there is not going to be a totem in Zinker. So we remove that marker cube from Zinker and we put that in the vision pack, the vision deck discard pile. So that's the very, very first thing it does, okay? Then what it's going to do is it's going to start taking its turns. Now, if we look here on the disruptive side of the turn tracker here, it says, if I have 5 or more crystals, you expend the top of the hand and the bot moves 5 to plunder. I'll explain plunder and some of the other keywords in a second. Otherwise, you expend the top of the bot's hand and resolve the icons expended on the card, okay? This means it's going to play the card. Right, let's show you the difference in the cards. This is your card that you will play, and you can see here these are the actions we'll take. That's actually not the best one. I've got 2 mark cards there, so let's take this, okay? This is your card you're going to play, okay? And these are the actions I can take on my turn. It says resolve 2. I could move 1 warband, that is a warband, and a warband is a group or a single of your troops from one particular area. I could move the drill for the Ironclad moves and you collect crystals via that, or I could place a foundation on any outer mountain range that I control. So that's how my card would work if I'm playing as the Ironbot. Now, as I'm playing against a Woodwalker, let's just take a card from the top of its deck here. Instead of looking at these actions, you're going to look at these 2 icons here, and those icons will represent icons on here, okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to carry out each of those icons and fulfill them one at a time. Now, you can make the game slightly easier for yourself because sometimes some of these icons are in red and in, let's see if we can find a red one, here we go. Some of them, like this, are in brown and in red. If you want to make it easy for yourself, don't resolve the red ones. If you want to make it play a normal game, resolve both icons. I tend to resolve both icons. So what it would do is, on its turn, is it would resolve its icons, and each one on each side may operate ever so slightly differently, basically. And it's got some keywords on there which I'll explain in a second. And then if it's got these lists on here, it would go to the first one that it could do. Okay, so you don't do all of those, you do the first one that it could do. Right, so we know that it is in disruptive mode. I'm just going to put that card back in there. Okay, we know that we have we know it's not going to be in Zinker, so you take a card from its hand. Okay, there we go, that's his hand, and we'll take the top card and we'll see what it says, okay? So remember, we are resolving, there we go, it's one of its base cards, these 2 icons here, all right? So let's have a look at that first icon, okay? Which, if we marry that up, that is actually this icon just here. And it says, draw 1 card for the Woodenbot and put it on the top of its hand, and it also gains a crystal. So this is its hand. When you draw a card for the Woodenbot, you would do that, and you would place it on top of its hand. That's their first action done, okay? And then we look at the second action, which is this one here, which is a locate action. So let's have a look at what that tells us to do. And for the locate, it says, if it's in a forest that is adjacent to a possible but uncontrolled mountain, the Woodenbot discovers there. Otherwise, it moves 3 to secure. Well, it's still on the outside edge. So it's not next to anywhere possible. So these are the possibles at the moment. It's still on the outside edge. So it's going to move to secure. So now is a good time to talk about 3 very important keywords for the Woodenbot. These words will appear on some of the Woodenbot's actions. And those 3 words you're looking for are plunder, secure, and interfere, and you can see they are represented there in the rule book. And these are kind of specific actions that the Woodenbot, should I say, will take. So let's talk about plunder first of all. And plunder is kind of looking at your number of crystals and trying to rob you of those crystals. So if I have 5 or more crystals available to me, that's crystals here, not in my cargo of my drill, but here available to me, then what the Woodenbot would do is it would move from an inner forest adjacent to Ferrum with the largest number of Woodwalker fighters, and it's going to try and move in towards Ferrum. Now, these forests on the edge of the board are the outer forest. Anything within this circle is an inner forest. So say, for example, I had those in there like that, okay? And one there. Okay, so I had those in there like that. If I was doing plunder and I had 5 crystals here, I would move from an inner forest adjacent to Ferrum with the largest number of Woodwalker fighters adjacent. Right, so there's the inner forest adjacent to Ferrum. I have 4 potential options here, but it's asking me to move the one that has the largest number of Woodwalkers available. So that would be here into there, okay? And you would move the number that it tells you on the card how many you're going to move. Interesting thing to note about movement is they can all of your Woodwalkers can only move once per turn, okay? So say, for example, let's do that. I had a couple of moves with Woodwalkers. I could move that one in there, but I could only move 3 of them into there. That one has to stay because it's done its total move for that thing, for that particular go. So that is plunder if I've got 5 crystals or more here. If the drill has 2 crystals in its cargo here, so my drill is going to move around the map. If the drill has 2 crystals in its cargo here, it's going to try and move to an inner forest. Remember, these are inner forests, which is adjacent to the drill. So if the drill is let's see, there, okay, so it's going to try and move to an inner forest adjacent to the drill with the largest number of Woodwalkers adjacent. Again, these would move towards there because it's going to try and destroy or maybe fight and steal the crystals from me as well. Or it's going to move to an inner forest adjacent to Ferrum with the largest number of Woodwalker fighters adjacent. Again, this 3 is there, so it would do that. It would do the first one it can get to, okay? Otherwise, okay, so if I don't have 5 crystals, or don't have 2 crystals here, the final thing is it would move to an inner forest adjacent to an outer mountain, okay? So it would move to one of these forests, okay, with the largest number of fighters in the outer forest adjacent. So it's going to try and move in from where it's got most of the Woodwalkers inside. It's going to come inside. Now, you may get multiple areas. For example, I have 2 there and 2 there, okay, one's around here, etc. So that's where this dice comes in, okay? So this dice is the kind of tiebreaker die because each forest and each mountain has a number on there. And what you would do with this die is you would either move to the highest even numbered, the highest odd numbered, the lowest even numbered, or the lowest odd numbered, and that helps you resolve tie breaks there. So if I look here, I've got 13 and 16, so I've got an odd and an even number. If I was to roll that, and it's come back as the highest even number, okay, so it's going to move in, but again, this has got 2 potential areas. It's got an 8 and a 9. So where's it going to move those into? We roll the die again. It's the lowest odd number. That is going to be the 9, and we know those are going to move into there. So it's a really effective system. So that's the final one on plunder, okay? That if there are no factors on if the no crystals in here or crystals in your cargo, then you're going to do the otherwise. And then if there are no fighters on the map whatsoever, you completely skip it, basically, okay? The next one is secure. And this is kind of when a totem is on the board, and what they're going to try and do is they're going to try and either get that totem or they're going to try and move it to the outer edges. So, first one is the target of the movement if a Woodwalker warband has a totem. So say these guys have got a totem here. They need to secure now. They need to get to one of the outer forests here. It's going to try and move to an outer forest adjacent to the totem, carrying the totem with them, or an inner forest adjacent to an outer forest with the smallest number of Ironclad fighters adjacent. Because as soon as they get this, the Ironclad is going to try and want to clamp down on that, because that is going to last 2 turns. These totems fade over a couple of turns, and then it'll be gone. So the first one is if the totem is there, it's going to move to an outer forest and secure the totem, put it on there. It's got one of its goals. However, if we now look at kind of the next one, which is an inner forest adjacent to an outer forest with the smallest number of Ironclad fighters adjacent. So this has got 2 options. It's got 8 and it's got 5. It can move there or there, basically. Can't move directly over. Here, if it moved here, it would have 2 available. Sorry, 2 Ironclad fighters next to it. And here, if it moved up there, it would have 3. So of course, it's going to move down here, and that's how that works. That's the first one on secure. Now, if a totem is present on the board, but it's not with a warband, so that is there and the warbands are there, it's going to move to a forest with a totem with the largest number of Woodwalker fighters adjacent. So again, if we look here, these are adjacent here. We've got 2 in this band and 3 in this band. It's going to move the largest number into there to try and secure it. Or it's going to move to an inner forest adjacent to a totem with the largest number of Woodwalker fighters available. So if that is there and those are there, it's going to move to where it is next to it. It could move that in there, but that's only 2. So of course it would move those in there and try and get closer. Remember, the aim of the game for this is to try and get those totems back. If there is no totem on the board and you have a secure, it's going to move to an inner forest adjacent to an outer forest and adjacent to a possible and preferably uncontrolled mountain with the largest number of Woodwalker fighters adjacent. Remember, the possible ones are the ones with the white cubes. They're going to diminish each round basically. So it's going to look to move to one of these with the least number of Woodwalker fighters adjacent. Right, okay? So an inner forest. So if this was here and this was here, okay, then this particular warband, it could move there or it could move there. And this particular warband could move there or there. It's not going to move there because they've got 4 in that warband. This one's only got 2. This is the largest number. So essentially it's going to go into number 5 or number 6. How do we break that? Because that can move in there and in there. How do we break that? Well, of course, we roll the die and we'll see. So 5 or 6, it's come up with the highest even. So it's going to move into number 6 and it's going to move them there because that is a possible mountain that may contain a totem. Now, if, so that's it for secure. Say if multiple forests are tied, then use the magic die. The last word you're going to see is interfere, okay? And this is kind of getting under the skin and trying to stop the Ironclad from raging forward with its foundations, okay? So let's have a look at this. Let's just put that there and put that there, okay? So the first one is an inner forest adjacent to a controlled foundation with the largest number of Woodwalkers adjacent. Now I could move 1 in there, I could move 2 in there, but I couldn't move this, I could move 3 in there basically because that's got that. So I would take that 3 and I would move that into there because I'm going to get ready to attack that particular foundation. Or it would move into an inner forest adjacent to Ferrum with the largest number of Woodwalkers adjacent. This could move in as 2, as 1, that could move in as 2, and again, this 3 is going to move in and try and attack Ferrum. Why would they attack Ferrum? Well, if I'm crystal rich here, and remember I need 5 crystals to transform a foundation into a forge. If I'm crystal rich and they attack Ferrum, what would happen is they would steal half of my crystals rounded up. And why is that important for them? That's the way that they get new troops on the board, is by spending those crystals. So it's quite important for them to do that. It can destabilize you quite significantly. So we've done Ferrum. Then the third one on interfere is an inner forest adjacent to the drill. If the drill has 2 or more crystals in its cargo area, which is here, with the largest number of Woodwalker fighters adjacent. So again, if we do this here, right? So there we go. Yeah. So we have 2 up at the top, 1 here and 1 here that could all move next to the drill. Of course, this one is going to do it because it's going to try and potentially try and have combat there and try and win that drill. Why would it do that? Well, it gets rid of, it keeps one of the crystals from the drill and it puts the other one back into the supply itself. I need crystals because crystals are my currency to not only recruit, but they help me as the Ironclad convert these foundations into forges. And then the final one is an inner forest adjacent to a possible mountain with the largest number of Woodwalker fighters in outer forest adjacent. So again, this is when you start the game, you've got these 4 which are kind of you're going to be your possible areas for the totem. But as the game progresses, as you get through here and you deplete that pack and you find the totems, what's going to happen is that you may get some in the outer areas as well. So again, if we look here, it's going to try and move from an outer forest into an inner forest. We have, let's put that there. There's nothing here because we know Zinco was gone. Okay, so this is fairly non-existent here. This one can move into here, which is next to Paladimor. These 2 could move into here, which is next to Lithimar. This one could move into Argentimar or Aurea. And how do you do that? Well, first of all, we take these. We take the die, and we've got 5, 7, 8, and 10 they could move into. That's right, yeah? Yeah, no. 5, 7, 8, 5, 2, and 3 is what they can move into. So let's have a look at that. It's the lowest even, it's number 2, so we're going to move into there. Who can move into there? Well, this is the highest number just there. So they would move into that, and that's how interfere works, okay? So that's kind of the 3 keywords. They're going to crop up a lot as you go through your various actions that are on this, this turn order sheet, okay? Now, when it comes to combat, what's going to happen is a Woodwalker may well initiate combat, but it will only initiate combat if it's at least equal in size to the Ironclad clan that it's trying to combat. Okay, so here we have 3 on 3. That would be combat there. If I was down at 2 and that was at 3, we would skip combat. That just would not happen. Okay, however, if that happened, and there was a golem there because the Ironclad have golems. There was a golem and 2 normal Ironclad. That golem counts as 2. So this 3 would not be equal in size to that. So again, it wouldn't attack there. Doesn't matter if this has got more. That's fine. If I've got 5 going in against 4 or 3, that's fine. It would attack. But the Woodenbot will only attack where it has superiority. Now, what happens when you do combat? Okay, so when you do combat, is I would have a look at, so say we're attacking each other here, so let's just put another one in there. There we go, we're attacking there, fine. So I have a strength of 1, 2, 3. The golem takes 2 to kill. They have a strength of 1, 2, 3, 4. So in any ties they're going to win. I would choose one of my cards to wage, okay? So let's have a look on the cards themselves. We have these numbers at the top just here. That's attack strength. Doesn't matter at this point for attack how many characters you have on the board. An attack strength of 1, a defense strength of 0, and a dominance strength of 2. So I'm kind of looking here what I could do. Not a great deal. Okay, so I got 1, 2, 3. I maybe want to save one of these. So let's say I'm going to play Vandalar's support, okay, which gives me an attack strength of none, but it does give me a save. Is that the best one to place? Yeah, it does give me a shield, so that's okay. And it gives me a dominance of 2. So I played mine, then what would happen is you would take a card from here, from their hand, and you'd put it next to it, and you would see what would happen, all right? Also, if you have any markers on the Spirit of the Forest here, remember each of those, well, not each of those, that marker would give you +1 attack and +1 dominance, and then you would remove the marker. It doesn't matter how many's on there, it would only ever give you +1 and +1, okay? They've got nothing on the Spirit of the Forest. So then we match them up. There, I'm going to do 0 damage to them, so I'm not going to knock any of theirs out whatsoever, okay? They're going to do 2 damage to me. However, my golem takes 2. They would ordinarily attack the golem first, but I have a shield, which means they're only issuing 1 damage. So they're only going to do 1 damage, which means they have destroyed and killed one of my Ironclad. Okay, so that's kind of the fight done there. Had I got more in there than that, so if I'd played, let's say, this one, which had a 2, there we go, I would have destroyed 2 of theirs, and they would have destroyed 1 of mine, or 2 of mine. They would have got rid of the golem. So there we are right now. So then we come down to dominance. I have a dominance of 2. They have a dominance of 3 on this particular card. You tot up all the fighters that you have, and then add it onto that dominance there. So they've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 2, 3, 4. Even though that takes 2 to kill the golem, it only counts as 1 in terms of dominance. So they have beaten me. Okay, they have absolutely beaten me. And what you then do is you would then move back into preferably an uncontrolled area. So I would move back into Ferrum, just there, and suddenly my Ferrum is protected. Those cards get discarded, okay? And that's how you do. They would go first there. I would then take my turn. Their cards would move along. Any cards that they play for wagering for their combat are going to be put straight into their discard pile, okay? So we've all played our 3 cards. Let's just say 1, 2, 3 cards. They played 3 cards, 2, 3. We're coming to the end of this particular round now. Okay, so then we do this in order. First of all, you would move any of the special cards, and bear in mind these special cards here, okay? you would move them up if they got a marker on them. Some cards you put a marker on, and that marker would last for 1 round or 2. There's none of those on the board. You move them to the side, and then when the markers are completely gone from there, you then discard them. Okay. Then you would discard all of your special cards. That's these that are being used. So the Woodenbot would discard that one. I would discard those 2. Okay. And then that's down to a maximum hand size of 8 cards plus your basic cards in your hand, okay? And then what would happen is if there is a totem on the board and hasn't gone out, that totem would fade, but there isn't a totem on the board, okay? Then we get down to recruit, and what's going to happen for every 2 crystals that they've got, they are going to recruit, and there is a priority for recruiting as well. And that priority is that they would recruit, and they only recruit into an outside area, adjacent to a totem, there's no totem on the board, adjacent to a controlled foundation, that is a controlled foundation, so if they had 2 crystals, we'd recruit one of theirs into that one just there, okay? Yeah, into that one just there. Adjacent to a preferably uncontrolled possible outer mountain, preferring one without a forge, so if that had a marker on it, I would recruit up there if I couldn't recruit next to a foundation. Closest to the drill. So if the drill is here, then it's going to be one of these 2 forests because that's closer. Or you would then use the magic die if tied, and that's how they recruit. So that's once they've recruited, you get to recruit by spending your crystals on there. Okay. Then what happens is they will possibly still have cards left in their hand. That's okay. Any of their basic cards, remember with the dark brown on the banner, go back into their hand. Same for you. Any basic cards that you may have used, they come out of your discard pile, go back into your hand. You always get those. All right. So you've got all those back. Then you go back to the start of the round. I would claim 2. They would claim 1 crystal. We'd draw 2 cards. We'd remove any markers from cards, and then we would go again. Remember, on the first of their turn, if they're on the disruptive side, they're going to unveil one of these cards. But what if there's only 1 card left on there? Well, that's when they're going to locate, okay? So let's say that they have only that left on the board, okay? So the first thing they're going to do is locate. What they would do is flip that over. They would gain the number of crystals, if any, on that card there. So we can see that Paladimor has 3. They're going to gain 3 crystals. Boom. Okay. That card is going to be removed from the game, but we're going to put a totem now next to Paladimor. Paladimor is up here, and generally you would put it if there were any warbands nearby. So let's say that warband is there. You'd put that totem there. They are ready for that. That kind of ends their turn there, if you like. So that comes out of the game. We're going to expend one of their cards, which is one of these here, all right? And we just put it there. We don't do anything with it. It's just to say that they've done a turn. But now we have to restack this particular deck here as well, the vision deck. So what we do is take all the cards in the discard pile, and that's going to be all the cards now except the 4 that you used, except the one where the totem was. I'm going to shuffle those, and we're going to draw 5 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is going to create their new vision deck for where they're going to put cards, okay? We've unmarked the corresponding mountain where it is, and now we're going to rebuild it by randomly adding 5 cards from here, well, until this is 5. It can happen that you could discover a totem kind of partway through the certain card actions that allow them to discover, and then you would build that back up to 5. Okay, and then what we would do is we'll look at where we got Chromia, which is here. There we go. We have Zinker, which is there. We have Aurea, which is down here. We have Plumbarium, which is over there, and we also have Cobaltis, and Cobaltis is up at the top. So you can see now the potential mountains where the totem could be are 5 now instead of 4. Okay, so that would then create their new vision deck. That totem's been put on the map. Remember, when the totem is put on the map, you flip it over to this side and you're going to use their exalted side. As soon as the totem is removed from the map, you're going to put it back onto this side. And that, in essence, is how you play against the Woodenbot. Okay? Now, there are multiple difficulty levels. in terms of adding more complexity or adding more depth to the game or making it harder to win, if you like, to the game. But this is kind of, you know, how it starts. If you don't want to use the red symbols on their cards, then that's fine. I like to use both symbols, and it creates a nice and meaty challenge. Key thing to remember is get used to these keywords: plunder, secure, and interfere. Get used to those and what they do, and remember just to follow the turn order in terms of what's on the board. Don't forget to flip the their disruptive or their elated side, and that's it. Each turn will happen very, very, very quickly. Yep, so that's kind of an overview. I say not in-depth rules overview in terms of what every single symbol means, but an overview on how you use the Woodenbot in Ironwood. Right, let's set it up now for the Ironbot. So here we go, everything is now set up for me to play as the Woodwalkers against the Ironbot. Again, I'm using the Ironbot side of their card just there. So the boards are two-sided, the players on one side and the AI on the other side. Normal game setup in terms of what goes on the map. In terms of your own setup here, the only thing that changes, pretty much like when you were playing as the Ironclad against the Woodenbot, is because I'm Woodwalkers, I'm going to remove 4 cards from my hand, and those are cards 17, 19, 22 and 36. So they'll go out of my hand and go to one side. The other thing that's changed as well is in terms of the Ironbot, remember the Woodwalker had this as what happens on their turns. The Ironbot has now got these action flow charts and also its stances here as well, because it's going to go in a different stance at the beginning of each turn depending on what the condition on the board. So if we start at the top, if there's a totem and a Woodwalker on the same forest on the board, it's going to go into a it's going to go into an aggressive stance, and that will give it +1 domination. So at the end of the battle, kind of gives it that extra boost to maybe win things. However, bear in mind it's the Ironbot, and it's trying to build foundations, then turn those foundations into forges. If it builds 3 forges, it wins. Okay, so if it has 5 crystals and at least 1 controlled foundation on the board, then what it's going to do is it's going to move into a defensive stance, and that gives it a +1 shield in combat. Any other condition on the board, it's going to move into expansive stance, which gives it +1 in combat. Okay. And why is that important? Because here is its kind of list of actions that it can take. And it will say to them, depending on what stance it is, so if it's in, let's get that right, so if it's in aggressive stance, or for example, if that symbol has, it's going to move to chase, and if it's in defensive stance, it's going to move to protect, and then regardless of stance, it attacks anyway. So the stance can make a difference in bearing in mind what kind of action it's going to take. Now, you mark that with a marker again. Okay, now again, pretty much like against the Woodenbot, there are 3 keywords that you're going to have to remember. There are more than that, but in terms of the keywords that's going to come up on the map itself, the first one is, you can see them here, we have chase, we have protect, and we have expand. Okay, so the first one it's going to come onto is chase. Excuse me. It says target the movement. A mountain adjacent to a warband in focus, where using a single warband movement, the Ironclad can concentrate the largest possible warband, and if tied, it selects a mountain that is unmarked, and if still tied, it uses the magic die. However, if the Ironclad already has more units in the warband adjacent to the warband in focus, it does not move at all. I'll talk about warband in focus in a second. You would mark mountains when a totem has been discovered there, okay, so it knows, it knows it's not going to go back there. Or the second, the source of the movement, so that's target of the movement for chase, the source of the movement, the mountain with the largest ironclad warband adjacent to the target. If it turns out to be Ferrum, remember Ferrum is in the middle here, protect at all costs, because Woodwalkers can steal the Ironbot's crystals from there, and Ferrum, as it's a forge, like all forges, it will give a +1 in combat anyway. But if it turns out to be Ferrum, ignore the 3 Ironclad fighters there. It always will leave 3 Ironclad fighters in Ferrum. It will always try and protect Ferrum, as they would be left behind to protect Ferrum. Reevaluate the source of the movement and use the magic die if possible. If there are multiple and they're tied, and then you would move combats from the source to the target until there are no more units in the Ironclad warband. So there are more units in the Ironclad warband than the number of Woodwalker fighters in the warband in focus. So it's going to try and attack, try and increase its units until it's larger in size. But it does not move out the last 3 combat units from Ferrum, and the golems, which are these guys here, will always move before the normal fighters. So yeah, this is very much about kind of chasing, about hunting down that totem, trying to find that totem or get that expanding warband. And it talks about warband in focus, but what is a warband in focus? So when the bot plans to attack you, it focuses on one of your Woodwalker bands it wishes to attack. So let's have a look here. Right, okay, let's put those into there. It's going to select, ideally, a Woodwalker warband with a totem, unless the totem is fading and it's the last turn of the round. Right? Yeah, on each round, once the totem's on the board, at the end of the round, if it's not moved to the edge of the forest, it will fade. And again, if it's not moved, it will then move off the board. But bear in mind, there are 3 goes each round. So if it's the last card of the round, it's pointless trying to move to that because it's not going to go off the board, and therefore you know that you pretty much won because the Ironbot always goes last. Also, the warband in focus. There are multiple Woodwalker warbands that have a totem, very rare. Break ties in the following priority order. Select one with a fading totem, unless it is the last turn of the round, or select one closer to an outer forest. Okay. So, here we go, and we look there. So ideally, if it's not the last turn of the round, they would try and attack this. If it is the last turn of the round, they would attack that one just there. If no Woodwalker warband has a totem, select the largest Woodwalker warband closest to a totem. So there we go, if that's there, and those are there, then we would try and attack this one here, because even though it's not on the totem, 3 outnumbers 2, so that one will be the warband in focus. And if no totem is on the main board, select the smallest Woodwalker warband available to select. So here we go. Who do we attack? We've got a 1, a 3 and a 2. Of course, they're going to go for the 1 just there. Bear in mind, you cannot attack in the outer forest, and the outer forest cannot attack inside from there. Okay? So that's the warband in focus. That's important for some of the moves. All right? The next keyword we're going to talk about is going to be protect, just here. So protect is the target of the movement is Ferrum. It wants to protect Ferrum. That's how it collects its crystals. Its crystals like not only to recruit, but also to convert its foundations into forges. So Ferrum, if there are less than 3 units in Ferrum, we've got 1 normal unit and we've got a golem. That's still only 2 units. So we would move back to Ferrum, if that's the case, to try and protect that. All right. A mountain with a foundation where there's a larger adjacent. So foundation is not a forge. So that's there. A mountain with a foundation where there is a larger adjacent Woodwalker warband than Ironclad present. Okay. So let's say we've got 2 there and we got 3 in there. I would move from that to there, because those to there, should I say, to try and even that out or try and get more in there. And you would target an unmarked mountain first. Bear in mind, when totems come on the board, you're going to mark that mountain. You know it's not going to go back there, so you're not too bothered about that area. Preferring the one with the smallest Ironclad warband. Or an unmarked inner mountain, that's these here, where there is a larger adjacent Woodwalker warband than the Ironclad present. Okay, so again, if I've got this here, there we go, 3 in there, and I wouldn't want to leave from Ferrum, so let's say we've got those down there, then I would kind of move that across there to try and outnumber those. And that is protect. It's all about kind of stopping them from coming in and grabbing your and destroying your troops, and giving them more of a chance to uncover mountains, to unearth, to locate totems and find out where they're going to be. The final one is expand. Now bear in mind, the point of them winning is to try and build these foundations in this outer area. So expanding helps them to do that. And what it would do is, the first target movement is an uncontrolled and unmarked outer mountain without a forge and the fewest total Woodwalker fighters adjacent, preferring a mountain with a foundation over a mountain without a foundation. So if we look here, all right, so we got 2 in there and we got 1 in there. Right, and all of these guys want to move. So bear in mind, it wants to move, and it's looking to move to an uncontrolled and unmarked outer mountain without a forge and the fewest Woodwalker fighters adjacent. Okay, so without a forge, fewest Woodwalker fighters adjacent. That one's only got 2, so we're going to try and move out there and expand and get into that. Maybe there was nobody in there. Okay, so those 2 moved out and to do that. Or an uncontrolled outer mountain with a foundation and with the fewest total Woodwalkers adjacent. So we've got 2 foundations on here. There we go. And we know That's got 2 adjacent. That one's got 1 adjacent, so it would move its Woodwalkers to there because it's got less chance of being attacked on there. Or finally, an uncontrolled and unmarked inner mountain with the largest adjacent Woodwalker warband. And this is really important, okay? It's uncontrolled and unmarked, so it's one of these here, okay? Uncontrolled means that you simply have somebody on that mountain or in that forest if you're the Woodwalkers. So this is to try and prevent them from coming into and attacking Ferrum, because of course the Woodwalkers attack Ferrum, they're going to start stealing crystals from here. So this would be to move that to there basically and protect Ferrum. Therefore they've got extra on there. They wouldn't move out of Ferrum, of course, they would move from there. There we go. And the source of the movement is going to be the mountain with the largest ironclad warband adjacent to the target. And if it of course is Ferrum, it's going to ignore the 3 in Ferrum, and it's going to move all of the combat units except 1. So you're always going to leave a man behind, except in the case of Ferrum, where it will always lead 3 behind, and golems would always move first. Okay, so that's that part of it. Then we got the drill itself. The drill operates in more or less the same way, but it will move around, and when it's got 3 or more crystals in here, what it's going to do is it's going to move towards where there is a forge, and there's always at least 1 forge. It starts in Ferrum, but as they convert, they will get more forges. Drops those crystals off. Those crystals, of course, go then into its available crystals, giving it more propensity to then recruit or to convert their foundations into forges. What you have to do beginning of each turn is really, really important though, is have a look at this stance, seeing what stance you're in. Don't forget to do that. It's very easy to do that because that stance will affect the icons that you're going to look at on its card. And apart from that, it works pretty much the same way as the Woodwalkers. It's going to play 3 cards. But bear in mind, it always goes second. It's going to do the turn procedures, it's going to try and build its foundations, build its forges, stop you getting totems, and again, it can be quite a tricky opponent to work against. Just like with the when you were playing against the Woodenbot, once you've got 3 cards and you've done your 3 cards, that's it. It's the end of the round. You would claim your basic cards back into your hand. You would put your special cards in the discard pile. They would get 2 crystals, you would get 1 crystal because they're the Ironbot. You would go first, and again, another round would start. But the key thing to remember, the difference to remember, is having a look at these stances on here, finding out how they affect the Woodenbot, the Ironbot differently to how they affect the Woodenbot as well. The icons, some of them are fairly similar as what is in the Woodenbot. Some of them are very, very different, so do get used to those. But they do become a little bit second nature at the, as the game goes on. So the key thing is just remembering those stances. That is how you play the Ironbot in Ironwood. Whew, that's a lot of talking. And there we go. So that's kind of a general overview on how to play Ironwood solo, as whether you're playing the Woodwalkers against the Ironbot or the Ironclad against the Woodenbot. They do operate in very, very different ways, and also make for a real change of pace in terms of how you're playing the game as well, and the games that you're going to have. Each one has a number of difficulty levels, and you can up that difficulty or decrease that difficulty accordingly, and there's plenty and plenty of challenge in there. The key thing is just remembering, certainly for the Woodwalkers, is their turn structure when they're on the disruptive side, and then their turn structure when they're in their exalted side. And certainly for the Ironbot is just remembering their stances and how that affects their their icons and their actions they're going to take. I say there are 3 kind of main keywords to learn for each faction, whether that's the Ironbot or the Woodenbot, and those you're going to find yourself referring the rulebook just a little bit as you get used to them. The more you play the game, then the more you get used to that, and it becomes a little bit second nature on what things do. The use of this die is really, really good as well. The kind of tie-breaking die, highest odd, highest even, lowest odd, lowest even, etc. That helps you break the ties. My advice is play at least 1 game two-handed. Even if you're not playing with anybody else, play at least 1 game two-handed to understand how the mechanisms of Ironwood work. Once you've done that, then absolutely think about playing against a solo. I would possibly play the Woodwalkers against the Ironbot first. I think the Ironbot is slightly easier to control than the Woodenbot is. So you play as the Woodwalkers against the Ironbot, play a few games, increase the difficulty if you feel like it. Just don't use the red icons on the card, only use the brown icons, or the black icons, brown icons. Don't use the red icons, it makes it a little bit easier in some cases. But pretty soon you'll be in a position where you want to be using both icons, and then have a look in the rule book for how you can increase the difficulty once you win. But let me tell you, it's not easy to win no matter which one you are. Yeah, a game can change on a dime, and I've had games certainly where I thought about kind of giving up, and then it turns out I won the game, and other games where I thought fairly early on I'm going to win this, and I've lost quite horribly by the back end of it. Do read the rule books. I say the rule books are very well laid out, very well instructed in terms of how you're going to play the solo against the bots there. And it is a tremendous amount of fun, 1 player or 2 player. That's kind of how to play the solo of Ironwood from Mindclash Games. So thank you very much for joining me on this video. Look, I don't generally do lots of how-to plays because I think it's a very particular skill set, and I hope I did okay for you guys. I'm sorry if I rambled a little bit too much. But yeah, thank you very much for watching me on this video. My name's Mark. This is Not Board Gaming. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out the other videos. And one final thought, if you can't find anyone else to play with, then there's nothing wrong with playing with yourselves. Until next time, bye-bye.